Earlier today, I received a video from Brother Mark, and it comes from this particular TikToker by the name of Dana Dane 1987. Now, she makes a video, and the target audience of this video is educated Black women. Now, I want to talk about this because in the 90s, I was going into middle school and going into high school, and with people like SWV, Mary J. Blige, even in the music, you started to hear Black women talk about their desires to level up. They didn't want to be like their grandmothers. They didn't want to be like their mothers, the baby boomer generation. Black women in this generation wanted to go to school, wanted to be successful, wanted to own their own businesses. And so that is what we saw all throughout Black America, especially in burgeoning Black cities like Atlanta. You had Black women from all across the country migrating there. DC, Baltimore, Los Angeles, the Bay Area, Houston. We started to see Black women leveling up in every industry and sector in the United States, including the public sector. Okay. But what did we see? Despite the trends of the academics and the professionalism and those things going up, we noticed that Black women, in some cases, were not matching with the men of their ilk. And I want to play this particular clip because it brings it all out, and then we'll come back and talk about it.
One thing I will give men credit for, when they level up in life and start making money, they also level up in the women that they choose as well. But not y'all girls. It don't matter how well y'all start doing in life. It don't matter how high you climb up. You always gonna walk back down, pick you a Pookie and try to bring him back up with you. And usually the only thing that happens is he bring you right back down to square one, or even worse. Y'all girls be out here putting your whole livelihood at risk behind these men, losing licenses behind these men, doing illegal activity with your jobs and everything else. What's the problem? Is it a lack of self-esteem? Is it a scarcity mindset? Why can y'all level up in every other aspect in your life except the men that you choose? Like, where is the disconnect coming from? You done found a way to get degrees. You done found a way to move up the corporate ladder. You done found all of these different avenues to do well in life, but you can't do well in the pickings of men that you choose. What is the problem, sis?
Now, guys, I want you to focus on what she said about the men. In the beginning of her rant, she said, one thing I'll give men credit for: once they start making more money, they get better women. Now, we're not talking about rappers or athletes. We're talking about men who have worked an honest living in the military or they're in industry. Once you see those men do very well, you typically don't see them matching with women that make them look very bad. Those women are very comparable to them, whether it's in looks, whether it's in socioeconomic status, or whether it's in, submissiveness. You tend to see Black men do better. And sometimes you see Black men not even dating women from the Black community. You notice this. However, what she's talking about is something that we see. Black women tend to do better, but they are attracted and still dealing with the same men that really they didn't need to go to school and deal with. They're highly qualified, academically qualified, but the guy that they're dealing with is what we consider a Pookie and a Ray Ray. He doesn't have a job. He might not work. He might be a struggle rapper. But then why is this? Why is this the case? Let's kind of explain it. And I think guys know where I'm going. A woman who has worked all of her life trying to get into the academic circle, the public sector, high levels of entrepreneurship. Those things are personal goals that a lot of men aspire to do. It doesn't qualify you for the kind of man that you want. It doesn't, because those things are the antithesis of, or it doesn't even matter. What a man is looking for in a woman who's also on that same level, it doesn't matter. However, a man who is more academically qualified, earns more money. Well, there's many more women that you can choose from of any race, because that adds to your masculinity. But with women, there's a harder, it's more of a convoluted situation, because their academics and what they do in the professional field has to also see an effort in the romantic interest too. And I will say this, many black women don't, tend not to do as well as other groups simply because the father isn't there. So they haven't seen how to interact with the man. And white women, Asian women, Hispanic women tend to manage both situations better. And so that's the situation. The reality is there's no effort being put there. So what you see is if I can't get the kind of guy that I want, then I'll at least date a guy who I feel looks very good. And I want to also play a clip of her describing that, and then we'll come back.
Don't apply to everybody, but this is some women like hood dudes because there's some hood dudes who are very attractive, and you're able to get access to these attractive men at a discounted rate. And let me explain it. Some of these men are very attractive, but they come with very undesirable qualities. They have a bunch of kids, bunch of baby mamas, no job, no car, no money. But you will look over it because you're getting an attractive man in return. A man under normal circumstances you would never have access to. Because if he actually had his life together and he had real options of women to choose from, he would not choose you. And you know that subconsciously. You know that you would have never had access to a man that looked like him unless he had these undesirable qualities that would make you accessible to him. And that's the reason why some of y'all like hood dudes, because they don't have no self-esteem and they have very low standards of the women they'll entertain.
Again, this is not uncommon. Women, when they cannot get the kind of man socioeconomic in the same socioeconomic class, they can say, all right, I'll deal with this man because he looks good and at least I'm attracted to him. So he doesn't have to qualify for the other stuff. But the reality is that man ends up being a nuisance, ends up being a problem. She can lose her stuff, ends up getting, her arrested and all these things. And this is what you see. And a lot of times you're seeing a lot of women doing this, or if the man is less than, and it comes to the point where I think that these women that get this masculine energy from their success, they kind of want a man that they can control. Like Lonnie Love, right? And James Welsh, Keisha Cole, Nico Kale, right? I'm looking for a guy that he can be my husband's son. So, he's physically attractive, but if he gets in the way, he's out. And that's really what it is. It's the failure to compete for a man the same way that they did in the private or public sector. The dating sector is a free market on its own, and women tend to not want to compete in the dating sector in the free market as much as they want to compete in the free market of the economy, as far as the private sector is concerned or the public sector. That's really what we're dealing with today. And she summed it up. And a lot of brothers understand this. And then a lot of times the women get upset about they can't find a man on their level. But then what did you do in the free market, in the dating market? Like, was there any kind of effort put there? And you'll find out that typically it's not. The career came first, and then there was no effort put into getting a man, and then you'll see you on Kendra G's show later on that night. But guys, what do you think? It's your boy, O'Shea Duke Jackson, back at it again with another episode of The Celebrity John. Appreciate you for all that you do. We're out.